Hey, what's up, everyone? Craig Coffey here. A really tough question, and I'm going to give it my best. It could take more than 2 or 3 minutes, but it'll be short, I promise. It's about this person's son is 15 years old. He stutters. He doesn't talk much except to the dad because of his stutter. There's a lot to unpack, and this is just my truth, the way that I see it. And I've talked to a lot of people who stutter, so this comes from a lot of that kind of experience, but I was never that person. So there is a fear of speaking that is separate from stuttering, that is separate from the blocking, the choppy speech, the pushing out words. That fear, in my opinion, is just as bad as the stutter. The fear of the embarrassment, of the humiliation, and your son has a right to be afraid of it because it sucks. And look, I had it, a lot of us had it, where just tired of being humiliated and embarrassed. But the fear of stuttering as he grows, in my opinion, will get to be worse than the stutter, because that fear can paralyze. That fear can have someone not leave their house or take a chance in life. And in my opinion, too, can't get better with your speech unless you're willing to practice it. That's one of my core beliefs. And so you're in a very interesting spot because he's not talking to protect himself, which I get, but he's also, in my opinion, he's hurting himself long term. So would love to, I think, chat more about this, but those are two things. The thing that I did, which I'll share, when I was 14, actually, I started a one-a-day challenge, but I never called it that, but I call it now. At the time, my speech sucked. And what I found is that I could talk better and be more fluent when I would approach a stranger with a question. Now, my speech was still awful, okay? But I stuttered less because I felt like I was in control. But whenever someone would talk to me or had a question for me, I would feel 2 inches tall. Whenever I would start the conversation with someone, again, I still stuttered, but I felt a little bit bigger. What I found out is through a lot of that practice, I got more comfortable talking. The second thing happens too, which is very unique, and no one's really talking about this, but whenever someone, let's take me when I was working on my speech, before I started to talk to strangers, if I had a bad stutter, that would replay in my head for a long time because I didn't have a lot of conversations. But whenever I started to talk more and more and practice this once a day, where you'd approach a stranger in a grocery store or a store or someone with a question, right? Like that idea gave more. Look, if you only have one conversation per month and it goes bad, you're going to think about it for a whole month. If you had one conversation a day or 30 convos in a month, then you can find times in there where you spoke more fluently. Not fluent, but where you had better speech. And see where your son is, where I think a lot of us have been or where we currently are. It's that we judge ourselves, we judge our speech. And if I could, and if I talk to him, I tell him the same thing as this, that it's, some people call it desensitizing, but I don't. But you could think of it that way, but it's practice. And in my opinion, your son would, what helped me was talking to more people. And it's not just to feel comfortable, like I said, and to learn how to do it, but it's you can therefore go back in your mind and replay and judge, because people who stutter judge themselves, and find some time where you spoke a little bit better. And when we're working on our speech, I think it's critically important to fuel ourselves with the positive, with what goes better. Not great, but what goes better. So those are a few things that have helped me. I know that you feel like you're in a tough spot, and he does too, and I get it. And a lot of us have been there. But hope does exist. It can get better, but it takes a lot of practice. And in my opinion, it takes being willing to put yourself out there and talk. So it's really hard, but that's my best advice from my own experience too, and from experience of talking to a lot of people who stutter. So I hope it helps, and I hope that you guys have a better day. Thanks.